All right, so here we are. Hello, 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 and happy Friday to you. Happy Friday. Yeah, it's Friday, everybody. That's a good any Friday is a good Friday. That's all I'm going to say. Any Friday is a good Friday. Um, Watch sports. Oh yeah, absolutely, Henry. I love sports. I'm very disappointed though, Henry. People ask me about the NFL. I'm sorry, but the Super Bowl is not the Super Bowl unless it has the 49ers in it. It's just not. It's kind of like you know what I mean? You gotta, but see, I'm old school, guys. I'm old school. I miss the Joe Montana days, the Jerry Rice, Chicago, Refrigerator Perry. I miss, look, yes, I'm giving you my age, guy. I'm in my 50s. I'm telling you that was the time. That was the time. So hang tight, everybody. Let me just get into the presentation before we get into the chat. So first of all, I would like for you to go to our sponsors' websites. It's KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Again, KGRADB.com. And I also want you to make sure you subscribe. It's a wonderful site. They have some amazing shows. This show actually airs there as well. But make sure you put Bishop as your promo code. Because if you do, you're going to get 30% off your subscription. It's already inexpensive as it is, but make sure you do that, guys. So again, KGRADB.com and put Bishop as your promo code. Don't forget. Also, if you want to go to my website, it's bishopjameslong.com. That's it. So that's my website, bishopjameslong.com. I want to remind you that I do have 4 classes that are online. And so you can learn angelology, demonology, paranormal studies, and genealogy, and you can learn them for free. I've given them away. I'm giving them away. But you got to click on the class link. And also, if you want to go to the church's site, so if you're interested more, you want to know more about the church, know who we are, it's all there. There's a frequently asked question there. It's all there. Just usocc.org. That's it. Thank you there, Boston. usocc.org. Now, I'm going to remind everybody that tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have night prayer. We do that Monday through Friday. And so if you would like to join us, that would be wonderful. We would love to have you guys there. You can just all you have to do is show up to one of my social media outlets and at 10 p.m. Eastern. We start chat around 9:50, so we'll start with you guys on TikTok and everybody actually around 9:50 p.m. Eastern Standard, okay? Again, guys, all the questions about the church can be found if you go to the church's website. It's all there, usocc.org. It's all there for you. Now, but again, 4 classes you're going to learn for free. And there's a tremendous amount of work that went into these classes. And so I believe in giving back and teaching. I have a master's of education. So teaching for me is something that teaching has always, excuse me, let me just pull this. Teaching has always been very important to me. Very important. And I love theology. I love the study of demonology, angelology. And for me, I want to eventually leave a legacy behind, not about the television shows that I've been on, but rather the education that I passed on. That's important. That is important. So, because I believe, as the old saying goes, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I believe that. And so giving back and teaching people and encouraging people and lifting people's spirits, that's important. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so let me just address one thing, and then we're not going to discuss it anymore. And by the way, moderators, if TikTok is if TikTok gets bad with trolling, just let me know. Okay. What is your take on higher end jewelry? Oh yeah, Blue Eyed. Sure. I'm Catholic and curious what your take on. No, that's a good question, Blue Eyed Barista. So what is my take on high end jewelry? I have no problem. Obviously, if someone wants to spend high-end jewelry with their money they earn, that is their right. But now, if you're referring to the jewelry that I wear, you can actually get this ring for $52 on Etsy, and this ring actually was a gift. So that you can actually buy on Etsy. for $52. And the gold chain, by the way, it's not gold, it's brass, and you can get this at Walmart for $4, which I did. So anyway, I just want to pass that on. I've taken a vow of poverty, and I've also taken a vow of celibacy. So with the United States Old Catholic Church, we're allowed to be in relationships, or we can remain celibate. I've chosen to remain celibate. So anyway, there we go. When God cleanses you of evil, why do devils enter you? Let's see. Ovi, when God cleanses you of evil, why do devils enter you? That's a good question, Ovi. Well, thank you, Jane. So Jane is asking, when God cleanses you of evil, why do devils enter you? It really goes back to invitation. I have always found that, well, there are very few exceptions, but in the 33 cases that I've worked on people who were possessed, I would say 95% of them was because there was some form of invitation. And what I mean by that is either playing with Ouija boards or doing seances, doing things they shouldn't do. And so that's been a problem. So again, just let me know, guys, if TikTok is a problem. I would like for everyone to be able to chat with us. But if TikTok, if the trolling is bad, okay. All right. Well, then, all right. Trolls are here, of course. Goodbye, trolls. All right. TikTok is getting terrible with the trolling. It's getting, so sorry, guys. We have to put sub chat on because the trolling is just that bad. So if you want to chat on TikTok, you're going to have to subscribe. And if you send me a nasty message saying, oh, you're a fake bishop because you're putting on subscribers, I'm just going to block you. I'm not even going to read your message. I'll block you because you're being vicious against the very people that the trolls are harassing us. And the only way that we can stop it is put sub chat only on. So if you're angry, then address that with TikTok. Okay. So anyway, happy Friday to you guys. So I'm going to say this very quickly and then we're moving on. I am fully aware of what happened in the political world today. I'm fully aware of that. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with Judy Ann about that earlier today when I went out walking. So here's what I'm going to say about that. Nothing. I am not going to bring in politics into this conversation. I'm not going to bring politics into this platform unless I see something that is so egregious. Then I will speak out because I have to. As a clergy member, it is my moral and ethical obligation to speak out. But I think that there's too much divisiveness in this world when it comes to politics. And I think I will say this. I do believe it was a mistake having that argument in front of the cameras. That should have never happened. That should have been kept quiet because the negotiation can be nasty. I mean, it can be a kind of aggressive. So that's the only thing I did not like that at all. Not the only thing, but nonetheless. So anyway, people come here because they want to get away from politics, turn off the the political world can get so overwhelming that the anxiety just builds up and people are having nervous breakdowns. So I think, this is my opinion, I think it's going to work out. That's what I think. I'm an optimistic guy. I choose to live my life with optimism. And so there we go. All right. And people can disagree if you want, and that's fine too. But nonetheless, that's what I believe. Okay. Tonight, we are going to have a cool, very cool conversation. And this is one of those conversations that I'm looking forward to it. I love urban legends. And when you talk about urban legends, you know what? Some of them are pretty frightening. Yep, I study with the Benedictines and with the Jesuits. Yep. I am a Benedictine. I have taken a vow of poverty and, of course, chastity, celibacy. So there we are. Yeah, we're gonna have a conversation. Let's turn this on here and let's get into this. I can't ever. I don't know why this thing here won't. I'm getting old. That's the problem. There we go. All right, urban legends, everybody. Let's talk about it. So, let me just ask you a question. Just say Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you actually believe there is any truth in urban legends? I'm really curious. Just say yes or no. Well, Judy Ann says yes twice. Okay. So Judy Ann even put it on Facebook. Really? There's a lot of you that says yes. Wow. I'm legit. I had no idea. Hey, Jack's Paranormal, someone, can we do a quick little survey? Do you think there is truth in urban legends? Yes or no? Because there a lot of people have said yes. I honestly, legitimately, I am surprised at that. Okay. I didn't know there were so many people who believe this. That's news. That's certainly news to me. I did not know this. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about let's do a poll on TikTok and see what the answer is, because I'd be curious to see what the posts say. Yeah, even you don't believe in aliens. Okay. So let's go into this. And then we'll find out what the posts say. Okay. Let's talk about urban legends. So sit back, relax, grab a cocktail, grab some water, whatever it is, popcorn, and let's talk about these urban legends. And by the way, I'm going to give you urban legends, alleged urban legends from around the world. All right. The poll is up, by the way, on TikTok. The poll is up. Make sure you go to the poll right there and make sure you put yay or nay. Yay or nay. And let's find out. Okay. Oh, it's all good. It's all good, Stephen. Welcome. Urban legends are a form of modern folklore, comprising stories circulated as true, often with macabre or even sometimes humorous elements. These stories can vary in their form in content, but they usually convey a warning or provide an explanation for mysterious happenings. The historical context of urban legends, it can actually be traced through several pivotal developments in human communication, society, culture. So again, we're going to get into the good, scary stories in a moment, but let's get a background first. All right. Wow. 60 votes. 87% says yes. 13% said no. All right. Let's talk about the early developments of urban legends. First of all, folklore roots. So urban legends share characteristics under older folklore, which has existed in virtually every culture around the world. Traditional folklore often include like myths, fairy tales, legends passed down through generations. And this tradition served as a vehicle for teaching cultural norms, imparting moral lessons. Now, the term urban legend, it reflects the shift from rural to urban living. As populations move into cities, the nature of storytelling evolved. Well, I'll answer that afterwards, Rosella. Now, the vastness of urban legends provided fertile ground for new forms of legend, often reflecting the uncertainties and fears that's associated with urban life. So in the 19th century and early 20th century, the Industrial Revolution brought about massive change in how people lived and communicated. And with these changes came new types of stories. The increased communication capabilities and literacy rates due to the printing press and public education helped spread stories more widely and rapidly than ever before. And as people moved from cities and mingled with other people from different backgrounds, stories began to cross cultural boundaries. And this blending contributed to the richness and variety of urban legends, with certain themes, becoming universal. Now, in the mid-20th century, there was a mass media influence. So the rise of mass media, particularly radio and later television, provided new avenues for the spread of urban legends. Programs often sensationalized stories to capture public interest, aiding in their dissemination. And there was also a social political climate. What I mean by that is the post-World War II era saw significant social change and uncertainty, including fears about nuclear war, alien invasion, the Cold War. And these existential anxieties were often reflected in urban legends. Thank you. Which began to incorporate themes of technology and supernatural threats. And in the late 20th century to the present, now we're in the internet and digital age. And the advent of the internet has had a powerful impact on the creation and distribution of urban legends. So stories can now spread globally almost instantaneously, gaining massive followings. So the line between truth and fiction has even blurred further with platforms like email and later social media, allowing legends to morph and come to life. And by the way, if you're on TikTok, please make sure you share, and like the video if you would, please. I appreciate that. Now, modern urban legends often reflect contemporary societal issues. Thank you. Such as concerns over privacy and online scams, technological dependence, and they can be adapted to address new fears. So, I do, Stephen. So, and by the way, if you guys hear me here, if you say thank you, it's because my friends on TikTok are offering gifts. So I try to thank them every time I see them. Now, there's been cultural impact and significance with urban legends. See, urban legends often carry implicit or explicit moral lessons, serving as a cautionary tale about contemporary issues, societal norms. And these stories help form a shared cultural consciousness, if you will, as they're recounted and interpreted within communities. And they can reflect the values and fears of society at even any given time. Now, and again, we're going to get into the scary urban legends in a moment. But as you know, I'm kind of a nerd, so I like to set up the topic first so you can get a background. Now, there is psychological comfort in urban legends. What do I mean by that? By providing explanations for strange or inexplicable phenomena, urban legends can offer psychological comfort, even if the stories themselves are frightening. So urban legends are a dynamic and evolving form of folklore that have adapted with technological advances. So let's talk about the key characteristics of urban legends. Urban legends are a type of folklore comprising stories as true. And many times with urban legends, they're anonymous. So urban legends are typically anonymously sourced and lack specific details such as precise names, places, and dates. And the plausibility to them, while urban legends may contain supernatural or exaggerated elements, they often start with a kernel of truth or a scenario that seems plausible enough to be credible. And that helps the audience suspend disbelief. And unlike traditional folklore set in a mythical past, urban legends usually take place in modern settings, involving contemporary concerns, cultural anxieties. And many urban legends serve as a cautionary tale, conveying a moral message or a warning about specific behavior and situations. By the way, they often reflect societal fears or taboos, such as the dangers of hitchhiking, the perils of modern technology, stranger danger. And urban legends are passed down, through tradition and media. And these stories often evoke strong emotions, whether it's fear, shock, humor, disbelief. And many times, urban legends are spread by a use of a friend of a friend of a friend narrative. Well, I know a friend of a friend of a friend. It's a common feature. And then there's a rapid spread. So urban legends can spread quickly, especially with the advent of the internet and social media. And many urban legends contain a twist, an unexpected outcome, even a shocking revelation that defies normal expectation. And I've actually experienced an urban legend, the black-eyed children. I've seen them. I don't know what in the world they were. I would assume, I truly believe they were demonic. But I'll talk about that in a moment. So urban legends often mirror the cultural, society, political anxieties of the time and place where they're popular. So remember, there's a narrative structure and themes with urban legends. There's the fear of the unknown. There's always a moral lesson there. And I think when people tell these stories, it's quite frightening. And look, they're entertaining. They create social bonding, and there's always some expression of fear or anxiety. So let's get into some of them, because there's quite a few. All right, let's go into each state, and then we'll talk about other. There's other, gosh, even around the world. So in Alabama, there is a urban legend of dead children's playground. So the Erie Playground, adjacent to Maple Hill, Huntsville's oldest cemetery, doesn't just have an eerie nickname for fun. The playground was presumably designed to entertain kids while their parents visited the graves of loved ones. Legend has it, though, that the spirits of children who have been buried in the cemetery since the first grave was actually dug, was put there in 1822, they come out at night. And the living have observed orbs of light going down the slide, seen swings moving on their own, even heard giggling. And creepier still, some say the spirits include victims of a bunch of children that in that area that were unalived. It happened in the 60s. Now, the playground itself wasn't open until 1985. So you can imagine how much pent-up energy that the tiny spirits had 163 years without a slide. And in 2007, the city tried to raise the park to make more room for graves and remove the slides and swings overnight. Well, after public outcry, it was replaced with more modern equipment, making it slightly less creepy to look at, and also probably resulting in, many people say, happier ghosts. However, many people who go to this particular cemetery, the Dead Children's Playground in Alabama, say that if children come up to you and they ask for you to push them down the slide, many times people say that they will see black-eyed children. I personally believe that children are not lost, meaning that when they pass over, I think they are immediately into heaven. I don't think God would allow that to occur. So I was working a case that it was a demonic case, and it was pretty late. It was around midnight, and we were there in this house, and this house had like a screened-in porch in the very front. So you go to the screened-in porch, and then you go to the front door. So we were there in this house performing the minor rite of exorcism. We're getting ready to do this, and I would say it was probably around midnight or so. It was very dark. They had the street lights, but the street light, some street lights were not working. And while we were right there at the door going into the front room to the living room, two kids, small kids, I would say probably maybe 12 to 13 years old. That's what I would guess, as a little boy and a little girl came, and the clothing was kind of odd, but they knocked on the screen door. And we turned around. We were kind of confused that kids would be out that late at night. Well, that was and it was dark anyway where it was, because the light was behind them. So we really didn't get to see their face, because the porch, they didn't have a porch light. So they would knock on the door, and there was nothing. When I walked to it, one of the investigators was right behind me, and I remember him grabbing my right, he was on this side, my right arm. He grabbed and squeezed. And I knew exactly what he was thinking, because when I looked at him, I mean, he was like pale as ghost. And I looked at the kids, and I got closer, because, they couldn't see. There were no eyes. There were absolutely no eyes. And originally I thought maybe the light was playing tricks on me. And I said, where are you? Are you lost? Do you need me to call your parents? Do we need to call anybody? There was no response, none. And I said, look, it's midnight here. You guys shouldn't be out, in the streets here. We need to call like authorities, or we need to call your parents. What are their names? Nothing. They just turned around and they walked down the street. So one of the investigators said, we need to go find out. We need to go find out who they are. So we were kind of like having a conversation about this. Like, yeah, we need to go keep, because the kids shouldn't be out there that late at night. And it was just eerie. And we didn't see the eyes. None of us did. And so one of the investigators went out and turned left to try to go towards them. And there was nowhere for them to just vanish, but they were not around. So it's not like we were having a long conversation where the kid ran, because they didn't. They just walked and then turned. And then we just said, okay, we need to call the authorities or something. So one of the investigators went out and turned left. They were not there. They were not there. So if you go to the cemetery and you see these kids, black-eyed children, you might want to just be aware. There were no whites. There was nothing. It was just black everywhere. I mean, the whole thing was just black. And even if they, put makeup on to try to scare us, it wasn't Halloween anyway. But even if they did, when they opened their eyes, you could have seen there was nothing. Nothing. Now, the Alaskan Triangle in Alaska, allegedly an urban legend, encompassing an area ranging from Juneau in the southeast to where the northern Barrow region. Alaska's answer to the Bermuda Triangle is comprised of some of the most barren wilderness in the United States. It's apparently craves souls. More than 20,000 people have gone missing without a trace in the area during the half-past century alone. Are they being consumed by mythological beings? Lost on extreme hikes, simply vanishing into a dark vortex? Nobody knows. Though it's not for a lack of trying. See, when a government lost House Majority Leader Hale Boggs, Cessna, to the Triangle in 1972, a massive search turned up tons of conspiracy theories, but nothing. Absolutely nothing. They couldn't find anything. That by itself is kind of concerning. Now, I know that to be fair, logically, let's use logic. It's a big area. It is a very, very big area. And yes, we can easily argue, because it is so huge, it's probably can be explained logically. But nonetheless, people swear by this. Okay. Let's go in now to the Dog Boy. The Dog Boy is located allegedly in Arkansas. So the name kind of sounds goofy, or actually even kind of like Goofy, if you will. But if you find yourself at 65 Mulberry Street in the middle of a minuscule Arkansas town of Quitman, you won't laugh if you see the hulking outline of a 300-pound half man, half beast, complete with glowing animal eyes. And glaring out the windows, walk quickly as he has been known to chase people down the street, biting at their heels, kind of like a dog. And this has actually been urban legend. This is actually a rare urban legend, and where the story behind ends up even creepier than the folklore. So Gerald Bettis, the only son of Bettis family of 65 Mulberry, was always a problem child, but not in the cute Junior Healy way. Bettis would collect and do terrible things to animals, hence the Dog Boy name. And before turning his sociopathic focus on his elderly parents, allegedly imprisoning them in their own home and potentially even unaliving his father. Eventually, Bettis would be imprisoned for growing illegal substance on his back porch and would pass away in a state penitentiary in 1988. So this is actually where this actually came from. In California, Turnbull Canyon. Never been? So if you know this, let me know if these are legit. Located in Los Angeles between Whittier and the City of Industry, Turnbull is a 49,000-acre smorgasbord of nightmare fuel set amid the scenic hills. You want your scares rooted in American history? Well, the natives call it Huntanaga, or the place of the devil, where the ghosts of those slain for not converting to Christianity dwell alongside witches and Satanists, who reportedly use the place to unalive children, whose spirits now walk the canyon and dangle. So have you heard of this, Desiree? They're joined by ghosts of 21 kids who perished in a plane crash in 52. And allegedly, and there's no existing record of it, and then there's the remains of the old insane asylum that came back to life to unalive a teen in the 60s via a long dormant electrical wire. There are cults, alien encounters, gravity hills. Oh, Desiree says yes. Wow. It goes on and on. Basically, if it's something that gets under your skin, there is a story about it in the seemingly cursed canyon. You know, I'm gonna have to go to the cursed canyon. The place evil vibes date back centuries, though it wasn't until the site was established as a fur trapping site in 1845 that things started getting really intense. With the word of the site's terrors traveling far and wide and making it a place visited as much for its beauty as morbid curiosity. That's interesting. I'm going to have to look this up. Again, for those of you who are looking, Turnbull Canyon. In Colorado, Riverdale Road. For 11 horrifying miles, Riverdale Road near Thornton, Colorado is crammed with enough horrifying legends to bring even the bravest paranormal investigators to their knees. From a ghostly runner attacking parked cars on Joggers Hill to various demons and even a phantom Camaro revving up and down the winding road. But the gates of hell seems the epicenter. The physical iron gates are now gone, but what remains is the partial shell of an old mansion where a madman supposedly unalived his wife and children. And left behind are the barren, charred plot of land and a white-clad woman who wanders the area. She's joined by the ghosts of people supposedly who were terrible, tortured, and go ahead and run away. It says when you see something creepy like an ethereal pack of dogs, and you're probably just going to bump into something worse, possibly hell. It's a portal to which some believe is there. That maybe explains why so many demons were conjured in a weird underground chicken coop near a set of underground tunnels. Now, it is unknown when things got really hairy there, even given the spirits of slaves. It's safe to assume terrible things have been happening on Riverdale Road since 1850s. Again, if any of these, let me know. Connecticut, Dudleytown. So often cited as a dark vortex, rumor has it that any visitor that steals an artifact from Dudleytown will have a curse put upon them and their family. Dudleytown Forest visitors report seeing just about every kind of paranormal phenomena you can think of. People describe an unnerving lack of wildlife in the area, as well as floating orbs of light and a sinister wolf-like black shadows, murmurs and disembodied voices. That's voices that you can actually hear, as well as feeling of general dread. And on the fact that there's a mysterious group called the Dark Forest Association that policies the grounds with militant force. And you've got yourself a serious case of what is really going on here. I've never been to this area. Now, the curse of the ill-fated Dudleys began back in England, where Edmund Dudley was beheaded for conspiring against King Henry VII. And this treacherous act apparently unleashed a curse on the rest of Dudley clan, which immigrated from England to Cornwall in Connecticut in 1748. They helped establish a community centered around the town's then thriving iron industry before a series of untimely disasters befell the family. These calamities included a series of mysterious deaths, which in turn inspired madness and unalivings among the Dudleys, several of whom disappeared into the woods, never to be seen again. The remaining residents very sensibly ditched the town, which has been abandoned ever since. Wow. Oh, absolutely. I'd go to an old funeral home. Yeah. In Delaware, here is an urban legend called Mr. Chew. So Samuel Chew was a respected man, a chief justice in the state back in the colonial days. Still, even in colonial America, bullies latched onto his name, constantly proclaiming "achoo" as if sneezing. He apparently hated it so much that his spirit still stalks those who mock him, showing up in his robes and powdered wig to scare the ever-loving world out of people who can't resist the easy joke at the expense of centuries dead legislator. That's not too creepy. Okay, Florida, the skunk ape. Now, there I have spoken to people and they swear that this exists. The Everglades are filled with an array of terrifying creatures, man-eating alligators, man-eating snakes, man-eating roadkill. However, one human-like figure has been spotted enough times to warrant elevated levels of concern: the skunk ape. So, relative of Bigfoot, a fully grown skunk ape stands between 5 to 7 feet tall and weighs approximately 450 pounds. Then they can be detected by a horrific odor that's been described as a sun-baked animal carcass and rotted garbage. They mostly eat berries and small animals, but from time to time, they have been known to ravage farms and tear wild boars to shreds. Recently, a skunk ape headquarters has popped up in the Everglades, where you can book tours out into the swamp or reserve a spot on a hunting expedition to finally prove that the hairy beast is true. So no one can say for sure as far as the history of where this came from, but because its lineage can be traced back to Bigfoot, many believe it migrated south from the mountains and found refuge in the swamplands, an environment safe from humans with ample sustenance and room to roam. Now, I know people who do believe and who do live close to the Everglades. They will not go in the Everglades at night. They won't. And they live in this area. That's how they make their living. And there's no way that I've talked to a couple friends of mine that live in this area about this skunk ape. I said, just take me out there. Let me go down and let me go visit. And let's just go out in the Everglades. They will not do it at night. They won't. In Georgia, the curse of Lake Lanier. So the massive man-made lake of Atlanta is unnerving on multiple fronts, with a reputation for tragic and sometimes mysterious deaths, from a disproportionately high frequency of boating accidents and drownings to unexplained unalivings. A construction crew discovered the skeleton of a woman who disappeared in 1958, still trapped in her car at the bottom of a lake more than 30 years later. And since then, people have reported sightings of a ghostly female figure on the lake's waters. There are even reports of malevolent catfish lurking at the bottom that's large enough to swallow a dog or even a diver. Now, I know people, investigators who've gone to Lake Lanier. I do know an individual who is or who was not a believer in the paranormal. They went to Lake Lanier. He will never go back to Lake Lanier. Never, ever. He doesn't like talking about it. What he saw startled him so much that he refuses. He refuses to go to this lake, ever. Okay, in Hawaii. Yep, Hawaii has urban legends. The Night Marchers, urban legend. So it says here, picture yourself on a scenic Hawaiian beach at night. Imagine a full moon and a cool breeze running across the sand. Dreamy. But if you hear the faint sounds of drums pounding in the distance or see a barrage of torches out on the horizon, it could be your worst nightmare. So the urban legend says that these spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors dedicated to protecting the island from all outside threat. They will only spare your life if, reportedly, if you lay face down, you submit to them, or you perhaps share a bloodline with one of the warriors. If not, allegedly, you will never be seen again. Now, the alleged encounter with the night marches known as, in Hawaii, was recorded when Captain Cook arrived on Hawaiian shores in 1778. In Hawaiian tradition, the night marchers' role in life was to protect sacred members of the community. In modern times, their spirits have been reported all throughout the island, mainly at the sites of a sacrificial temple and other sacred grounds. And apparently, and the decidedly corporate Davies Pacific Center building in downtown Honolulu. Apparently, they still protect the island from outsiders. I know nothing about this, so I've never been to Hawaii. In Idaho, I have spoken to a person who swears this happened to them. And I wouldn't say I know them well, but I don't know them as a liar. They're pretty straightforward. The Phantom Jogger of Canyon Hill in Idaho. There are rumors of many hauntings in Caldwell, Idaho's century-old Canyon Hill Cemetery. But The one that gets the most attention is the midnight jogger. As with many of the best urban legends, you have to do your part to get attention. And in this case, it involves parking between certain trees in the cemetery at night. Do it right, and the legless apparition will knock on your window to let you know that she's there. Then continue on her route. Many people swear that this has happened, though now it's only the second worst image conjured when you think of a sinister jogger. The origins of this is unknown. Though considering there's another conspiratorial, legend that the entire state of Idaho doesn't actually exist, believe it or not. Anyway, in Illinois, the Italian bride. Okay, the Italian bride. Yeah, so at least you can't chase you. In Illinois, an elaborate marble statue of a woman in a wedding dress is bound to stand out in a cemetery, as it is. But that's not what's driven the Italian bride to be subject of local fascination. Upon closer inspection, there is an actual photo plaque on the gravesite of a woman in a casket looking perfectly preserved, even though, as an inscription notes, the photo was taken 6 years after burial and the body was exhumed. Reports of unusual activity cover everything from the smell of fresh flowers near the gravesite in the dead of the winter, or the ghostly figure of a woman in white roaming the cemetery. Now, where this urban legend came from in 1921, recently married Julia Petta passed away in childbirth, was buried in her wedding dress. Legend says that her mother immediately began experiencing nightmares that Julia was demanding her grave to be reopened. The source of the distress varies depending on the storyteller, often related to some sort of discontent with Julia's new husband. But what isn't in dispute is that 6 years later, the mother got her wish. And Julia's pristine condition inspired her to raise funds for the statue that's been creeping out generations ever since. In Indiana, Diana of the Dunes. Oh, wow. Black feather. I'm going to also talk about the gates of hell, the urban legend that we saw. So along the shores of Lake Michigan, fishermen, vacationers, and other passerbys have reported sightings of Diana, a ghostly female apparition floating along the shoreline and eventually disappearing into the water without a trace. So where this came from is fishermen first started reporting the sightings of a woman in the waters off Indiana's Lake Michigan coastline in 1916. And that's because Alice Gray, the source of the Diana legend, was still very much alive at that point. The exact circumstances that caused her to live a reclusive life in a lakeside shack aren't entirely clear, but the years that followed saw her marry a man who later become a terrible suspect who did something terrible, and then passed away at an early death, allegedly from poisoning. So her ghostly presence has been a subject of local lore ever since. Now, the other urban legend, but this is actually a true story, the Vasilla Axe unaliving house. Isn't that so stupid we have to say that? But nonetheless. So, what part of the Axe unaliving house? Really, that's why it's creepy. The unalivings themselves are not much of an urban legend. They actually happened. And they remain unsolved. Sometimes between the evening of June 9, 1912, and the morning that followed, 6 members of the Moore family and 2 house guests were brutally unalived, with each victim having suffered an axe wound to the head. One suspect was tried twice, never convicted. Surprising no one, the somehow still standing house is a subject of numerous rumors, urban legends, and reports of paranormal activity. Has anyone been to this house? I have spoken to people who've been to this house, and they absolutely swear that the urban legends are 100% right, true. Okay, so a lot of people have not. Okay. All right. In Kansas, Crossing Guard Paranormal says yes. Okay. So in Kansas, Have you heard of the Stoll's Gateway to Hell? The Stoll's Gateway to Hell. The tiny town of Stoll, Stull, has counted very few residents since it was founded in 1856. The most famous is rumored to be Lucifer himself, who some say appears in the town cemetery on Halloween and spring equinox. They say he uses the site where a roofless church once stood as a portal to and from hell. Now, some say that he's drawn the site of the frequent witch hangings. Others believe one of the graves actually contained Satan's own child. Either way, new graves continue to be dug, despite signs warning against trespassers, perhaps referring directly to the Prince of Darkness himself. Now, I have had friends go to the cemetery, and they did an investigation, and they have, thank you, Michelle, and they absolutely have really deep growls, EVPs. One actually said leave. The other said get out. It was pretty intense. In Kentucky, there's quite a few in Kentucky, but there's an urban legend called the Witch Girl of Pilot's Knob. So just looking at the pictures of young Mary Evelyn's Ford's grave feels a bit unnerving, with a series of interlocking white crosses forming a fence around a pit of gravel and the bars appearing unnaturally bent in some places. I have seen this. Then you hear the alleged backstory. A mother and a daughter, both accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake in 1916, with the mother's charred remains being carried to a far-off location, while the daughter was buried in a steel-lined coffin covered in stone and encased in crosses to prevent her from escape. Some have claimed to witness tiny footprints appearing in the gravel, or even a young ghostly figure trying to escape the gravesite. Kids' ghosts, as we know, are the creepiest of ghosts, it says here. Now, while stories about the gravesite go back decades and naturally increased in detail with the growth of the internet, there's not much evidence that anyone was burned at the stake for witchcraft in the area of 1916. Even back then, that was generally big news. Mary Evelyn Ford really did pass away a tragic young death, but the stated cause of death is an inflammation of the stomach's lining. But they're in the cemetery. It is interesting. This cemetery, the things that I saw were like caved in, and it was kind of strange. It was like keeping something in. It was very, very odd. So I did see that. In Louisiana, the vampire of Saint Germain, or from Saint Germain. As far as spooky stuff goes, Louisiana does not rely solely on voodoo or hoodoo, ghost, or Woody Harrelson's accent from True Detective, the site says. Like any vampire with this garlic, Jacques Saint Germain's hobby is seducing attractive young females in New Orleans, only to promptly drink their blood. By some accounts, he was born in the 1700s, and others, he's been alive since the beginning of time. Well, anyway, he's still on this blood drinking binge in the French Quarter today, though now he just goes by Jack. So Comte de Saint Germain was certainly a real person. He was an alchemist, an all-around high society snob who befriended a laundry list of famous 18th century luminaries. He ran with crews including, King Louis and Catherine the Great, Voltaire, who was also seen, who said he was also a man who never dies and who knows everything. There's a lot of people who swear that if you go to this particular cemetery, you'll see him, allegedly. Maybe one day we'll go there and find out. In Maine, the Wood Island Light. So instead of providing useful light to help ships navigate, the lighthouse on Wood Island reportedly provides a space for strange moans, unexplained shadows, and other indicators of paranormal activity commonly attributed to an unaliving that took place there decades ago. Howard Hobbs, a local fisherman and drifter, really did unalive his landlord, Fred Milliken, on the Wood Island in 1896. Hobbs had been drinking, and after unaliving Milliken, left the scene and turned his rifle, did terrible things to himself. Anyway, People allegedly see this light that's not there. In Maryland, the Goat Man. So Maryland's infamous Goat Man allegedly does all the things you would expect a deranged half goat, half man to do. Unalive teenagers, eat dogs, scream like a goat, etc. But the most terrifying aspect is just how deep the lore goes. So the USDA was even forced at one point to publicly deny accidentally creating the beast in their Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. That's how bad this urban legend got. Another tale revolves around a goat farmer who, after realizing a group of rowdy teens had unalived his tribe, went totally crazy and turned into this slaying goat monster. Now, where this came from, the first recorded media mentions of the Goat Man occurred in 1971, courtesy of writer Karen Holster. The first was a deep dive into Maryland folklore, followed by an actual news item about a family blaming the brutal unaliving of their puppy on the Goat Man, which they may or may not have heard about in the city news. Now, in the Massachusetts, the curse of Giles Corey. So the Salem witch trial, they were creepy enough to begin with. But the story of Giles Corey was, obviously, he was slowly pressed to death under a series of progressively heavier rocks in an effort to extract the confession is particularly unsettling. So legend has it that he uttered a curse against Salem right before his passing breath. So for generations, his apparition has allegedly appeared in the cemetery before something terrible is about to happen. Tell me if you guys are in that area, tell me if you guys have heard this. I'm sure you have. So for generations, that's what happened. And there's also been a series of tragedies that have hit the Salem Sheriff's Office, starting with a 1696 heart attack that unalived George Corwin for 4 years after he presided over the trials. In Michigan, there is a bridge called Hell's Bridge. I have not, no, Amanda. So this is the tale of Elias Frisk. He was a deranged old preacher who, according to blood-curdling lore, Pied Piper a group of tethered children into the woods near what is now Algoma Township. He unalived them one by one, casting them into a Cedar Creek before being caught by their parents and unalived, but not before saying he was possessed by demons. In its current form, Hell's Bridge is a creaky, narrow, metal footbridge in the middle of the woods where those brave enough to cross at night claim to hear the voices and screams of children, and sometimes greeted by a black figure with glowing eyes as they traverse it. In Minnesota, the Hairy Man of Vergas Trail. So it's not to be creeped out about that. An 8-foot, musty-smelling, barefoot man with a reputation for being unnaturally aggressive is a heck of a thing to consider encountering in the woods. Now, some reported sightings were just that, sightings. However, reports like Ken Zitzal's made the hairy man more than an apparition, but something to fear. So Zitzal returned from driving in the woods with dents all over his car hood and said that the hairy man jumped onto the road and began pounding on the hood. In Mississippi, the three-legged lady of Nash Road. So whenever a strange person starts chasing your car as you drive down a dark, unfamiliar road, it's unsettling. When she bangs on your hood, it's even worse. But when she has 3 legs and one seems to be a rotting limb she's sewed to her body, that's just the worst. But that's what generations of Mississippians have said about the stretch of Nash Road near Columbus, where the lady does her thing. Tell me if you guys have heard of this. If you're in this area, Jack's Paranormal, you've heard this? If you've heard of this, let me know. So, okay, the next one, I have heard of this. And as a matter of fact, I have spoken to Keith Age and the Booth brothers. I've been in 5 documentaries with the Booth brothers. They were there. They saw this in Missouri, Zombie Road. As a matter of fact, they even have a picture and you see hundreds of shadow people. In Zombie Road in Missouri, the Dark Canopy Trail running through Wildwood, Missouri, just outside St. Louis, had been a hotbed of creepy tales for ages, often revolving around shadowy human figures following a frightening those along the trail. Originally built as an access road for the gravel quarries along the river, the road fell into disrepair in the 70s, saw an increase in teenagers flocking to the area to party and to scare each other. The origin stories of the trail haunting varies widely, from the kind of plausible railroad accidents, etc., to the more sensational. Several years ago, the pathway was paved so it might be used as a bike path, but that hasn't done much to slow down the legend. In Montana, I have heard of this before, the Hitchhiker of Black Horse Lake. So usually when you see a hitchhiker on a particularly desolate stretch of highway, which Highway 87 can certainly be, it gives you the willies. On this particular stretch of Great Falls, it's compounded by the fact that the namesake lake is seasonal and dry most seasons. Regardless, the end result of the body of a Native American man clad in jeans with jet black hair slamming into your windshield as you're driving, it's sheer terror. Legend has it that those who encounter the hitcher suddenly find his body bouncing off the front of the car. And when they do stop to help, there's nothing there. No damage to the windshield. The hitchhiker, meanwhile, repeats the cycle endlessly, trapped in his own personal hell as he repeats his moment of death with whichever driver happens to be cruising down the road for the wrong time. Kind of creepy, isn't it? Nebraska, Seven Sisters Road. There's no shortage of creepy road where creepy things happen stories, but Nebraska's Seven Sisters Road is particularly unsettling, with a legend telling of a young man who, following a dispute with his family, led each of his sisters out to 7 different hills and unalived them. The precise origins of the legend are unclear, depending on who you hear from, but it goes back long enough and is ingrained well enough in the local culture that it's taken into account when making highway construction plans, and people in the locals do not go on Seven Sisters Road at night. Nevada, Area 51. Look, Area 51 lore has been remixed, riffed, and there's so much popular culture. Sometimes it's hard to remember how creepy this whole deal was or is in the first place. But secret government cover-ups, aliens, playing God in the middle of the desolate Nevada desert is creepier than many things, but it's been said that everything from time travel, genetic experiments, alien autopsies are commonplace at Area 51. Now, first of all, Area 51 is real. It is a highly classified military base. Don't even think about approaching. New Hampshire, the Cursed Isles of Shoals. The charming little Isles of Shoals off New Hampshire's eastern shore is a perfect destination for a seaside picnic or, a series of unalivings. 2 young women were horrifically unalived via the particularly creepy maniac with an axe in the 1870s. And apparently you can still hear them screaming, often late at night, which is just objectively unsettling. This specific island, Smutty Nose, is said to be haunted by these ghosts and even the unaliver himself, pirates, and a gang of other poltergeists. Now, the island has a history of longer than the country that they're in. So Blackbeard himself was rumored to use the island as a honeymoon destination and a gold depository in the early 18th century. And naturally, he unalived some people there along the way. In New Jersey, the Watcher. So the average New Jersey's Devil fanboy is scarier than obviously the Jersey Devil. The Watcher. It is a urban legend that creeped its way to viral fame in 2015. So if you don't know in the details, in the summer of 2015, a young family moved into a $1 million house in Westfield, New Jersey. Soon after, they started getting letters signed by someone only IDing themselves as the Watcher, claiming that it was his duty to watch over the house, while also spouting crazy lines like, "Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested?" Or, "Who has the bedrooms facing the street?" This actually occurred in New Mexico, Chupacabra. So basically, it's a rabbit beast that may or may not be the size of a bear, but definitely has spikes on its back, glowing eyes, allegedly. Some say it can fly, but it will definitely suck the blood out of your pets and your family. And a ton of people think that it is real. In New York, the Montauk Project. It's a series of alleged government experiments conducted in Montauk, Long Island, in the early 80s, reportedly served as one of the Duffer Brothers' main inspirations to Stranger Things. That's where it comes from. So we're talking about psychological warfare, experimenting on children, opening portals to other dimensions, and various other nefarious government-funded creepiness. Many people swear that creatures lurk in this area, monsters lurk in this area, and you never go ever in the woods in this area. Perhaps, I don't know. In North Carolina, the beast of Bladenboro, because it's largely possibly vampire cat. It's a vampire cat beast that might also be part bear. Will brutally unalive your pets, livestock. In 1954, a string of mysterious, gruesome deaths began to hit animals in and around Bladenboro, North Carolina. Terrible things. Eyewitness accounts varied, but seemed to point to something vaguely feline in nature, also larger and more powerful. The story made national news. There might be multiple hunting parties that attempted to catch the beast, and they never did. Eventually, the unalivings stopped. In North Dakota, there's a place called the Gates of Hell. So abandoned towns are generally creepy, and North Dakota has an abundance of settlements that were all abandoned after the railroad boom. Tegas, though, takes the cake due to the little fact that people believe that it once housed a Lutheran church that doubled as a hotbed for Satan worship. Now, urban legend says it burnt down, but if you stand just in the right place, you can still hear the screams of the damned bubbling up from hell itself. And there are also reports of hellhounds, glowing gravestones, and a ghost train. Vandals and revelers have made the few people who call Tegas home very wary of visitors. And Lord knows that if the combination of a rumored portal to hell and extremely unwelcoming locals in a small town, it's a horror movie fodder, no doubt. In Ohio, melon heads. Sounds like something your grandma might have in a candy dish, but it's actually a true urban legend about pale, sickly, genetically altered children with giant heads and razor-sharp teeth that simply love unaliving. So riffs on this tales exist in Michigan and Connecticut, but the Ohio case is particularly compelling. These melon heads haunt the woods of Kirkland, and apparently they adopted children of an unscrupulous doctor who used the pre-melon heads to test new medical and surgical methods. Well, anyway, in some versions of the tale, the kids are merely likely to scurry away like chipmunk, then bite your face off. In others, they are just ghosts of the kids. So it's called, check that. It's a melon heads in Ohio. In Oklahoma, the Skirvin Hotel. And because the place is basically Oklahoma's equivalent to the hotel from The Shining, a luxury hotel whose permanent residents include eternally crying babies, a ghost that likes to grab people, spirits that slam doors, and the ghost of the original owner's mistress is allegedly there and who still walks the halls with a stroller. It's so prevalent that even the toughest of NBA players who stay at the posh hotel when in Oklahoma City often find themselves seeking alternative combinations. They don't stay there. That's called the Skirvin, Skirvin Hotel in Oklahoma. In Oregon, see, if I win the lottery, I would go to every one of these places. I would, and I would stream live. In Oregon, the Bandage Man of Canyon Beach. Okay, so far from the rooted in history scares of Portland Shanghai tunnels, the Bandage Man haunts a lonely patch of decommissioned highway near the idyllic coast town of Cannon Beach. Like many slightly pervy ghosts, he likes to mess with randy teenagers, making it out of their cars, and though more sinister legends have him eating animals and wandering the wind-swept roadside, and even jumping in the back of pickups and sedans, filling the car with a scent of rotting flesh. By the way, the Bandage Man, most popularly a logger hacked up at the nearby mill, made his earliest documented appearance in the 50s. It was likely a spook story told around beach bonfires by teens to scare people. In Pennsylvania, Charlie No Face urban legend. According to legend, after a tragic childhood accident, Charlie No Face, aka the glowing green man, lost his face and turned radioactive, literally glowing a toxic green as he stalks western Pennsylvania highways at night. His main haunt is Piney Fork Tunnel, an abandoned freight tunnel in Hillsville. Now, if you seek him out, keep your foot on the accelerator. Even if he manages to touch your car, it might stall out, according to some people. Then you'll be hanging out with Charlie No Face for the rest of your probably short life. In Rhode Island, Mercy Brown. So Rhode Island's home to many haunted houses, including one that inspired The Conjuring. But one legend you can experience without trespassing is the tale of Mercy Brown. So it seemed that back in the day, Rhode Island was in the midst of a vampire panic, and its most famous victim was 19-year-old Mercy Brown. After her mother and sister passed away, Mercy succumbed to tuberculosis as well. Due to the panic, villagers presumed something supernatural was afoot. When they exhumed Mercy, her body was remarkably well preserved. So, and this is a true story. They removed her heart and liver and burned them to ashes and fed them to her sick brother. He died 2 months later. And they say that the spirit of Mercy, though, still haunts the cemetery of this area where her gravesite remains, a place where morbid tourists flock and where a chill hangs perpetually in the air. Now, the historical fact is this. Mercy Brown died January 17th, 1892, and her cremated heart was, in fact, force-fed to her brother. They believe that, that if he consumed the ashes, that would keep her spirit, her vampire spirit, from coming to attack him. That's what they actually believed. So this is a really creepy, crazy story. That's actually true. South Carolina, boo hags. So boo hags basically make traditional vampires seem like Robert Pattinson vampire. They're skinless beings that creep into people's homes in the low country, climb on their chest, and attack them. They allegedly suck out your breath, and they've also had a nasty habit of tearing off a victim's skin and wearing it to keep themselves warm. So boo hags are a fixture of urban legends prevalent in coastal low country areas populated by African American descendants of slavery. The creatures are among the most horrifying and unsettling among a rich folkloric history. South Dakota, Walking Sam. A wave of unalivings, 103 attempts as of December 2014. On Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota is being attributed to the presence of the Walking Sam figure. Teenagers claim a slender, shadow-like spirit dubbed Walking Sam appears before them and commands them to unalive. The first wave occurred in 2013 when 5 members of the Sioux tribe unalived themselves, continued to spiral until the Sioux tribe president, Thomas Pooh Bear, discovered photos on Facebook in 2015 depicting terrible things from trees, revealing plans behind a teenagers group unaliving. This is a terrible. The spectre archetype that Walking Sam is based on has roots starting with good old fashioned boogeyman and certainly working all the way down to Slenderman. Told me to do it in 2008. The idea of shadow people is also pretty old school urban legend, going back further than history can care to track. However, the character of Walking Sam himself has existed among the Lakota and Dakota Native American tribes for some time now, with a record of him being described in a book called In the Spirit of Crazy Horseback in 1980. In the Tennessee, the Bell Witch Cave, or the Bell Witch. Now, Willie Windwalker was on, and he's absolutely convinced of this. Essentially, a real-life horror movie. The hauntings of one of Tennessee's family by some sort of spirit believed to be a witch ultimately attracted the attention of subsequent visitors, soon to be President Andrew Jackson. And while Jackson, who allegedly was spoken to by the witch, got the heck out of Dodge, a cave near the site believed to be a portal for where the witch remains a major tourist attraction. Okay. In Texas, many have reported black-eyed children. Scary movies constantly have people fearing old country back roads, abandoned homes, and kids popping out of cornfields. But the black-eyed children are known to be seen wandering around totally normal, non-threatening locals like in Walmart parking lot, Sonic drive-ins. And worse, they're rumored to put their victims in a tight situation by starting out asking for something totally unsuspecting, like a ride home, or in fact, petty cash. Now, here's what's interesting. The first documented case of black-eyed children came in 1996 from a report Brian Bethel, who had pulled his car into the parking lot of Abilene Movie Theater to use the bright marquee light to write a check. While filling out the check, two young kids, who Bethel claims were between 9 and 12, approached the car, knocked on the window, asked for a ride home to grab cash to come back for a movie. The children, who totally unnerved Bethel, claimed that they did not have any type of weapon before making eye contact and revealing coal black eyes that Bethel later described as the sort of eyes one sees these days on Aliens or bargain basement vampires on late night television. This is a true story, and you can actually look this up. Brian Bethel. In Utah, Escalante Petrified Forest Curse. So Utah's legend in particularly troubling for tourists, as they might be taking the horror home with them, even if they escape the forest, with shocking regularity. Visitors who have stolen chunks of petrified wood from Escalante Petrified Forest State Park will mail back their lifted souvenirs. All their letters detail a series of unfortunate events, from broken collarbones, arms, and ribs to mysterious illnesses, horrific accidents, financial ruin. The one thing they have in common, they all occurred after the victim allegedly and illegally stole a piece of the forest. This actually is, many people swear by this. So by the way, many people have and still do mail back cursed pieces of the petrified wood. And the park even displays the letters and samples openly as an attraction. Apparently, there have been real cases of stolen wood turning to bad luck since the 1930s. Though it's unclear that the actual root of the curse, who knows? But nonetheless, it's so bad that people mail it back and say, we're sorry, we should not have never have done it. That's crazy. In Vermont, the Hayden family curse. You know, a curse is a serious when it takes down an entire lineage and still manages to bother people after everyone else has passed away. Well, I visited Vermont once and I have heard of this. William Hayden was a wealthy landlord in Albany, Vermont in the early 1800s, but he never repaid his even wealthier mother-in-law for loaning him some major funds over the years. Well, after much complaining, she became mysteriously ill, accused William of poisoning her, and with her dying breath, she said, "The Hayden name shall die in the third generation, and the last to bear the name shall die in poverty." Well, the Hayden family barely made it another 100 years after being plagued with financial catastrophes and illnesses. Phantom music, mysterious lights, and other assorted paranormal activity is said to haunt their estate in Albany, along with the ghosts of vengeful mother-in-law, too. This is, and I actually heard about this. Now, in Virginia, the Bunny Man Bridge. Okay, and I'll turn on TikTok. I'll turn the chat on TikTok in just a moment for everyone. The legend is fun to repeat at campfires, but the real sightings beyond the legend are some to give you some nightmares. So in 1970, there were numerous police reports of people who had been threatened by a man holding a weapon, wearing a white suit with bunny ears. A few individuals reported that the man in the suit actually threw the axe at them for trespassing. To this day, there have been many sightings of dead rabbits appearing in the woods surrounding at Fairfax Bridge, and now known as the Bunny Man Bridge, as well as a white figure appearing late at night underneath the bridge. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Legend says that in 1904, a group of convicts were piled onto a bus to be transported from an asylum in Clifton, Virginia, to a nearby prison. Well, en route, one of the buses crashed. The convicts managed to escape. The police were able to round everyone but one. And as their search went on, they began to find skinned, half-eaten bunnies in the woods and hanging, from the overpass of Fairfax Bridge, known as the Bunny Man Bridge. A year later, on Halloween night, several teens went to hang out under the bridge. Come morning, they were all unalived. It is said that if you hang out under the bridge on Halloween night, you will meet the same fate as the rabbits and the teenagers. And that actually is true. In Washington, 13 Steps to Hell urban legend. So basically the opposite of the Zeppelin song, the Maltby Cemetery itself is the subject of rumors associating with Satanism. It is rumored to include a subterranean tomb for a really creepy rich family that could be accessed by 13 steps that led to their final resting place, or the final resting place of every soul in history. As legend has it, descending the entire staircase led you into a glimpse of hell itself. Well, the cemetery has been around since 1901, though the crypt itself date has not really been lost to time, and has had the stairs themselves, which have been bulldozed and covered in concrete. That hasn't stopped curious paranormal people from trespassing on the secluded private property. So don't do this. Now, in West Virginia, Mothman. So I don't know if it was Mothman what I saw, but I'll talk about that in just a second at From the Gates of Hell. So Mothman. The Mothman was introduced to West Virginia in 1966 with the best newspaper headline ever. Couples see man-sized bird creature something. From there, residents all over West Virginia reported seeing the winged, human-like, red-eyed creature around the state, unsure if it was a demon, alien, or genetic experiment gone wrong. Even as recently as 2016, Mothman sightings have made the news. Yes, the actual news. In Wisconsin, the Rhinelander hodag. So the hodag is a small creature that is simultaneously is a frightening demon, comically covered in spikes. It's often portrayed as being a dog size, but early reports said it could grow to 6 feet long. In 1928, legend describes the hodag as having the head of a frog, saber-toothed tiger-like fangs, thick legs with large claws, and the back of a plated dinosaur, and a long tail with spears on the end. Okay, that's interesting. Now, here's what's interesting. The Green Devil was discovered in 1893 by developer Eugene Shepard and almost instantly became a fixture of North Wisconsin folklore. 3 years later, Shepard claimed he caught another and put it on display in 1896 at the county fair. He had knocked it out with the chloroform, so of course it was sleeping. But he had wires hooked up to the fake animal to make it move occasionally. So word spread fast, and anyway, that was, believe it or not, an urban legend debunked. And of course, the Platte River Ship of Death. There are endless creepy tales in the wilds of Wyoming, among them a headless woman who haunts the lodge at Old Faithful. But the creepiest is also the most overlooked, a ghost ship that materialized out of a spectral fog on the Platte River. The cursed crew huddles on the deck of the old sailboat, surrounded body, and if the onlooker persists in looking, the corpse is revealed to be that of a still living loved one, who will then pass away afterwards. So the ship was first reported spotted in 1892 by a trapper named Leon Weber, whose girlfriend passed away shortly after he envisioned her on this cursed deck. So legend has it that the last documented sighting claimed the life of Lumberjack's friend back in 1903. There have been no official sightings since, though you could forgive people, obviously, if they truly believe this, and they absolutely do. So yeah, that's kind of creepy. Here's an interesting one. Let me share some that are around the world by Aaron Chack. Listen to this. And again, in about 10 minutes, I'll open up the chat to everybody on TikTok. Soul Snatchers of Bangladesh. So in Bangladesh, there is a story that during funeral processions, all evil spirits that have sold themselves to the devil try to snatch the soul of the deceased and drag them to hell. The more people you have during processions, the better, because you literally have to fight, struggle, and work very hard to hold on to the coffin. So much so that some people find themselves extremely fatigued and have to give up. And then other pallbearers actually take over. This is another one, the haunted tomb at Grey Friars Kirkyard. In the late 1990s, a homeless man in Edinburgh sought shelter from a storm in a black mausoleum in Grey Friars Kirkyard. And once inside, he realized there might be items of value in the wooden coffins. Began smashing them and opened in search of treasure. And suddenly he fell through the floor into an underground chamber, only to land in the stinking soup of rotted human bodies. See, he had inadvertently discovered a pit where victims of the plague had been tossed. The coffin he had disturbed right before falling through the floor. It belonged to a notorious rebel named Lord Advocate Sir George Mackenzie, who was responsible for the deaths of over 18,000 of his countrymen, some of which lay in that very pit beneath his grave. So now, when people visit the cemetery, they report feelings of unrest, cold winds, choking sensations, fainting, burns, gouges, cuts, and bruises. There have been, by the way, over 500 cases of unexplained injuries of people who visited this place. Here's another one in Oklahoma, near Oklahoma, between Missouri and Oklahoma. Spook Light. This person says, I live near the site of Spook Light, which is a light that appears in a small area known locally as the Devil's Promenade. It's on the border between southwestern Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma. The Spook Light is reported to be the shining lamp of a Native American chief searching for his missing head. Apparently, back in the 1980s and 90s, a pair of teenage sisters, took a pumpkin and drew a smiley face on it before leaving it out on the road where the spook light can be spotted. They went home immediately after and went to bed. And when they woke up the next day, the pumpkin was on their kitchen table, but instead of a smile, it was scowling, creepy. The Maryland Goat Man. In Beltsville, Maryland, a scientist of Agricultural Research Center was experimenting on goats when the procedure backfired. And of course, once the smoke cleared, the scientist had become a mutated half goat man, half monster. Thank you. Legend says that the creature roams the back roads of Beltsville with an axe, attacking cars and wreaking havoc. La Llorona, otherwise known as the Weeping Woman, is a story of a poor Mexican woman who married a rich Spaniard. Now, after they had children, the Spaniard started losing interest in his wife. He was embarrassed to be married to a woman without prestige. Thank you. In a rage, the woman took all of her children to the river and unalived them, thinking that that would appease the Spaniard. Instantly, she was hit with regret. She started screaming, mis hijos, which means my children, my children. Today, people say that La Llorona wanders near riverbanks looking for her children. So if La Llorona finds any children near the river alone, she lures them to the water. Yeah, I've heard quite a bit about La Llorona. The Crescent Motel. This is kind of creepy place. The Crescent Motel. So guests of the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, have claimed to notice ghostly activity during the stay. Among the more famous ghosts are Michael, construction worker who fell to his death while building the hotel. And there's a place, was it in California? What is that hotel in California that the Night Stalker or that serial killer, who was it that he stayed in? What was that place called? Something hotel. I can't, it's in California. Cecil Hotel. Now that would be an interesting place to go to. That would be a very interesting place. Yeah, that would be it's okay, it's in Los Angeles. See, I've never been there. Cecil Hotel. And oh, it's still operational. I didn't think it was still operational. So it's still there. Oh, it's near Skid Row. Wow. Oh, wait. It was, I think it, I don't know. I don't know if it's still available or not. It's still there. Apartments and hotel. Wow. Okay. The Rake. Here is an urban legend. In New York, there is a creature called the Rake who stalks suburban areas at night. The Rake is a gray-skinned, half-human, half-dog creature that walks with a ruined, mangled posture, almost like it had been hit by a car. Anyone who looks back into its black, soulless eyes becomes its victim. Oh, okay, I'll have to watch that, Sister Jennifer. It waits at the foot of a person's bed, and when they wake up, make eye contact, it attacks. The Loveland Frogmen. In 1955, a salesman was traveling down an old road near Loveland, Ohio, 3:30 in the morning, when he spotted 3 humanoid reptilian beings near the guardrail. He stopped to observe them and noticed they closely resembled frogs, except for the fact that they were nearly 4 feet tall. Right when he was about to leave, one of the creatures raised its hand above its head and waved what looked like a sparkling wand. The man drove away spooked. There have been multiple reportings on this since 1955. The next one is the Fresno Night Crawlers. This person says, in my hometown of Fresno, California, we have these things called the Fresno Night Crawlers. They are like golem-like things that look like a pair of legs with a face. And they come out at night, but only on federal buildings and spaces to terrorize people and walking through. They are rumored to be about 7 to 11 feet tall. The next one is Flatwoods Monster. In 1952, a couple of kids in Flatwoods, Virginia, saw a bright light streak across the sky, tracked it to a field full of mysterious mist. And near the edge of the field, they spotted a 7-foot-tall, black-bodied, red-eyed monster whose bluff charged them and screeching until the group ran off. The kids suffered throat burning, sore muscles, convulsions, vomiting from ingesting the mist. And legend says that the alien-like creature is still trapped in the woods somewhere trying to get home. The Jakartan call girl. There was a call girl who got unalived in Indonesia. Somebody slashed her face and unalived her. And after she passed away, her phone number remained active. You can still call the number and you will hear her pick up the phone, allegedly. After a couple-minute conversation, she will ask if you want to meet her. If you say yes, she will ask you to turn your head and look at the window. And when you look at the window, you will see her ruined face looking at you smiling. The clown statue. Now, I've heard of this rumor. I've heard of this urban legend. A girl was babysitting one night, and upon entering the house, she immediately noticed a clown statue. It creeped her out. The eyes always seemed to follow her as she passed, but she tried to ignore it. And after the children had gone to bed, she called the parents and asked if she could perhaps put a blanket over the clown because it was starting to really creep her out. "We don't have a clown statue," the mother said. And obviously, she and the kids allegedly left. Okay, the legend of Gryla. In the hills of Iceland, there lives a giant troll with hooves for feet and 13 tails named Gryla. And every Christmas, Gryla comes down from her mountain cave to hunt for naughty children. Once she brings her bounty back to the cave, she has stew. Okay. The next one is the ghost children of Munger Road. So in Wayne, Illinois, there is a Munger Road that's supposed to be haunted. The legend goes that a school bus stalled on tracks, was struck by a train. Now people will go park on the tracks and put baby powder on their bumpers because the ghost kids will leave fingerprints as they try and push your car off the tracks. I have seen videos of this. I have seen people actually do this. They will place baby powder on the back of their car and they will park on the tracks and they will wait and wait. And then they leave, they pull over and they allegedly see little kids' hands. Stull Cemetery. So once a year on Halloween night, the devil rises from hell through a portal in the small town cemetery in Stull, Kansas. The area is so haunted that many say that the Pope won't even fly directly over it. Anyway, a large gnarled tree in the cemetery is said to have been a terrible tree for witches, and a grave marked with a name Wittich may house the bones of a Satan's own child. Again, winding stairs. There's a winding road in the middle of nowhere. This person says, near my town called the Winding Stairs. A lot of satanic ritual there. After several years of black magic and satanic rituals, the woods around the road started to get pretty haunted and creepy. People say if you drive out there and turn off the car, demons will either push the car or try to get in. You can see lights moving in the woods and hear strange sounds. The country even put a sign up that the road is closed a few years ago. Never took it down because they don't want people to mess around with it. Wow, that's kind of creepy. Yeah, so that's there's a lot of really interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting urban legends. When you see some of these urban legends, and you think, and there are so many, guys. We didn't even get to half of them. But there are people who absolutely swear by this, and you're not going to tell them, you're not going to convince them otherwise. They absolutely are convinced that these urban legends exist. Okay, so for those of you who are on TikTok, I've opened the chat up for everybody. Oh, it was? Okay, yeah. So let's get into some paranormal conversation. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to jump into. If you have questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. Oh. Hmm. One second. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at someone's mentioning about the Pope and updated. Okay, so yeah, I'm trying to find it. Most updated information. Bronchospasm worsens. Pope Francis' conditions, but signs of improvement emerge, and says Pope Francis suffered an isolated episode of bronchospasm on February 20th, causing vomiting deterioration in his respiratory condition. Vatican News reports. Says here the Holy Father inhaled some of the vomit, leading to a sudden worsening of his condition. He was immediately subjected to bronchial aspiration, clears airways, placed on non-evasive mechanical ventilation, which improved his oxygen levels. Wednesday evening, the Holy See office issued an update stating that Pope Francis' condition had shown a slight further improvement over the last 24 hours. So, okay, but so there was some improvement there. Listen to this. This is a very, very interesting listen. This is by T.K. Randall. I don't know. This is kind of strange. Let me see if I can share this with everybody here. It does look weird. And then I'll see if I can share this with you guys too on TikTok. That is kind of odd. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. It's got to load. There is a odd face. Let me update this in Antarctica. And let me add it. One sec. Come on. I don't know how to make it. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. Well, what I can do is just take a screenshot of it because it's going to take friggin' forever. I don't know why it won't sync. Anyway, I'll just take a picture of the damn thing. Okay. There. So let me show this to you guys. This is kind of weird. Yeah, that's so there's as you saw, a giant creepy alien face discovered actually in Antarctica on Google Earth. So a satellite image covering part of a desolate Antarctica waste shows a feature that looks deceptively like a face. So from the entrance of a secret base to the silhouette of a giant sea monster, amateur Google Earth sleuths have found all sorts of strange and unusual features, some of the world's remotest places. Well, their latest example, which was recently discovered and posted on Reddit, shows a bizarre alien-like face complete with a large nose, two closed eyes, and a small slit-like mouth. Weird. It says you can find it. By the way, if you want to find it, you can find it on Google Maps. It's 72 degrees 00. Well, it's 72 00 36.0 S south. And if you want to find it, so it's 72 00 36.0 south. And the other is 168 34 40.0 east. Anyway, I showed you that's what it looks like. But of course, this isn't actually a face, but an example of pareidolia. Many people say it's pareidolia. It's the brain's innate tendency to perceive meaningful shapes and otherwise abstract patterns. It's the same phenomenon that enables us to see familiar shapes in clouds and also responsible for the discovery of various weird and wacky anomalies on the surface of Mars. But it is interesting. I mean, when you see that, you see the nose, you see the mouth, you see the eyes, it's kind of creepy. I think it gives creepy vibes. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm going to show it so you get. Let me show you. That is very strange. But nonetheless, it's there and you can actually Google it. Yeah, it does. I mean, you can see the eyes and you can see the nose and the mouth. But anyway, that's some folks found this on Google Maps. And so just all you got to do is in Antarctic waste. It's a desolate Antarctic waste. So in Antarctica on Google Earth. So just type in giant creepy alien face discovered in Antarctica on Google Earth. I understand the argument pareidolia. No, you can actually see it. So you can actually go on Google Maps yourself. That's why I gave the coordinates, and you can actually go there and look at it yourself. That is just really creepy. Let me see. Google Maps. I'm not really that great with Google Maps. I hardly ever use it, but let me just try this. Where is this thing? Okay, I'm going to see. There is the. I'm going to post it in the chat so all you guys can get it. At least there's the chat for the coordinates. I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, but how are you supposed to layers? Yeah, that's that's kind of creepy. Yeah, you clearly see it. So, folks, for those of you who are on TikTok, 72, just type in 72 space 00 space 36.0. Again, 72 space 00 space 36.0. And then give a space. And that's S, that's south. Make sure you put south. And then it's 168 space 34 space 40.0 east. And if you just type in Google Maps, there it is. So it's not AI. And you have to click on terrain. That's weird. Yeah, that's well, pretty cool. That I think it's very, very cool. And when you see things like that, it's like, well, that's golly. Okay, yeah. So there you go, guys. Make sure you check that out because that's here's a very interesting. I just did. I showed it twice. I did, Thor. I showed it twice. I can do one more, and then we're gonna move on. The coordinates that I put in the chat, and it takes you right there. Yeah, there it is. 720036 south. Yep, 16834. Yeah. I don't know. But listen, this is a very interesting conversation. We're going to do this, and then we have to close out on Facebook, YouTube, and all that other stuff, and KGRDB radio. Listen, this is a really cool article that I read. This is by TK Randall. A burst of brain activity after death could be the soul leaving the body. Really interesting. A leading psychologist has identified an unusual burst of brain activity that occurs after a patient has died. It says here, do we possess a soul that persists after we die or consciousness that produces entirely within the physical brain? It's a question that scientists, psychologists, and philosophers have been attempting to definitely answer for centuries, and a conundrum that we seem no closer to solving. Well, that said, Dr. Stuart Hameroff, he's a professor of anesthesiology and psychology at the University of Arizona, believes that he may be closer than most to finding an answer. So back in 2009, researchers in George Washington University placed small sensors in the brains of patients deemed to be clinically dead. just before their life support machines were turned off. Surprisingly, they recorded unexpected brain activity, sometimes lasting up to 90 seconds, occurring after the patient had died. Now, Dr. Hammeroff now believes that this could be evidence of a soul leaving the body upon death. He said the research also suggests that consciousness may be the last thing that goes when we die. Quote, this is what he says. As the brain reaches, now again, this guy he's a professor of anesthesiology and psychology. So this is not somebody who gets medical information from YouTube, with all due respect. He says, as the brain reaches a critical level of apoxia, the action potential, an electrical signal that shoots down a neuron is lost by a large number of neurons. And this loss of electrical potential causes a cascade of electrical act, the study researchers wrote. Says, we offer this as a potential explanation for the clarity in which many patients have out-of-body experiences when successively revived from a near-death event. But is this really evidence of a soul leaving the body or simply the activity of a dying brain? That's pretty impressive. That's a really interesting. Dr. Stuart Hammeroff. He's a professor of anesthesiology and psychology at the University of Arizona. So if you want to do your own research, his last name is Hammeroff, Hameroff, Hammeroff, Dr. Stuart Hammeroff. That's fascinating. I mean, when the client has died, they deceased, but yet brain activity still continues even after the body expires. For even up to 90 seconds, that's pretty substantial. That is pretty substantial. So yeah, that's I don't know. Wow. I think that's pretty cool. So for those of you, I want to remind everybody, don't forget. So we're going to be here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our open mic night. Open mic night is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Judy Ann, Miss Wilma joins us. We tell some jokes for 30 minutes. We goof off, have a great time. Then we bring on the moderators. The moderators come in, and you guys, we also bring up on TikTok, we bring you guys up on the screen if you have any questions. And then don't forget, Sunday is Bible study. Sunday at 8 p.m. Thank you. Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is Bible study. So please join us there. And don't forget also tonight we have night prayer. So we will come right back on air on my social media platforms and on TikTok at 9:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when the chat starts. And then we have night prayer. And then usually afterwards, I stick with TikTok for a little while longer. And I just chat with you guys. So it was a pretty cool show. There's a couple of things we're working on behind the scenes, which I talked to a few folks today, and we're trying to get those worked out. And then I have, of course, I talked to Judy Ann, so that would be pretty cool. We're going to probably working on a few things as well. I am going to eventually try to do another documentary on Eastern Cemetery. Eastern Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky, let me tell you, is no joke. It is no joke. So for those of you who are listening to this on podcasts, I wish to say goodnight to you guys. Okay, so don't forget, everybody, don't forget, we're going live again tonight at 9:50 p.m. for night prayer. And we certainly do hope that you can join us. That'd be great. Okay, my friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Rumble, I tell you all the time that your value does not decrease based on someone's inability or refusal to see your worth. You are priceless, and don't let anybody tell you or convince you otherwise. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and KGRADB Radio. Good night.